Welcome back. In Granada, despite attempts to stop the Muslim community from building a place of meeting, a beautiful mosque was finally constructed. In fact, with a technique invented 500 years ago by the Moors. In the second part of his film, Justin Webster examined the reactions to the building of the mosque and what keeps the Spanish and the Arab communities alienated.
Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
All a very long way from the height of Islamic civilization here in Granada. Here the Moroccan muezzin of the Al-Baithin Mosque, which opened only 3 years ago, calls Muslims to prayer, looking out towards one of the masterpieces of Islamic architecture, the Alhambra. Built with money from Arab countries, the mosque was a 20-year project piloted by Spaniards converted to Islam. There was also a sense of the shared history of Al-Andalus, where Muslims, Jews and Christians lived together in southern Spain 1,000 years ago, that helped get the construction approved. Even so, there was opposition. Even talk of how the Moors were re-invading 500 years after they were driven out by Spanish Catholics, and the usual bureaucratic obstacles. He explains there were attempts to stop the Muslim community having a place of meeting and to a certain extent a place of reference to say that Islam is returning to this land.
El proyecto pasó momentos muy difíciles.
The project went through serious difficulties, but in the end people saw it built, and they saw what went on inside, and they saw that there were only benefits to them and to the city.
Beneficio para la ciudad y beneficio para ellos, ¿no? Después de 500 años, una técnica que se fundó.
After 500 years, a technique invented here in Granada, he explains, which disappeared and went to the Maghreb, has now been brought back to its origins in the construction of the mosque in Granada.
Ha vuelto a sus orígenes y ha sido construida y establecida aquí.
As in Catalonia, there was also a campaign to collect signatures against the building of the mosque. But here, next-door neighbours saw the mosque as a good thing for a run-down barrier.
A mí me parece bien.
I think the mosque is good, says this neighbour. They came to me to sign and I said no, I don't want to sign, because the mosque is going ahead. They don't cause trouble. The people in the church make more noise with their guitars and tambourines, she says. All that about the Moors, and it's not that bad. But in Catalonia, the neighbours' reactions are still at the other end of the scale. We have come to see another makeshift mosque closed down in Sant Boi, near Barcelona. I don't want problems, says the woman who rented the house to Muslims, worried by the camera. We have come with Yassine Ephraim, who led the plans to create a new, unofficial place to pray, with other young Muslims. It's a sign of the tensions that we are asked not to film by local police while they check out our credentials. Yassine and his followers, like a growing number of young Muslims, profess a radical and political interpretation of Islam, one that bluntly rejects any integration into Western society.
Integración no se puede.
Integration is impossible, he tells me, because that means leaving part of your culture and taking on part of the culture here. And Spanish culture taking on something of his culture. He says he's been here for 5 years and there's nothing of his culture in Spain. The Spanish community rejects the Muslim community, he says. This is strongly denied by Spanish local governments. As this councillor explains, seeing citizens who are different, who speak differently, have a different culture in Spanish districts is a question that needs a certain amount of time to develop policies of social harmony and intercultural exchanges so that this can be overcome reasonably peacefully. But it is amongst alienated youth like Yassine, a construction worker who says he's come to Spain only for money, that Hibs ut-Tahrir, the radical Islamist party banned in Yassine's own country, Morocco, is gaining ground.
Es que este partido, yo no sé cómo le llamas en castellano, bueno, Hizb ut-Tahrir.
This party, Hibs ut-Tahrir, is well known in Catalonia, he says. It's a political party which campaigns to practice Islam in government.
Llaman ellos a practicar el Islam en un gobierno.
I agree with this party, explains. They offer exactly what we need.
Ellos presentan lo que nosotros nos falta, lo que nos falta.
The growth in radicalism amongst the youth has led to a split in the community in Samboy. Here at the existing unofficial mosque in the town, the older members who founded it 10 years ago have found themselves criticised not only over the lack of space, but also for not being strict enough Muslims. The young are more modern, says this imam. They want a big, well-built place. When they find this is small, there are problems. There are always arguments and problems. Why? Because the place is small. If it was big, there wouldn't be any problems. We need a mosque of 300 or 400 square meters. The bigger the better, because people are arriving all the time and the community is growing, complains this young man. What the young have to do is support us, so we can make something bigger, replies the imam. And Irami says it's because the older people want to practice an Islam which is adapted to Spain, a superficial Islam, he says.
Superficial.
But the young want the real Islam.
Real, como digamos, como está.
We are not politicians, the imam tells me. This is a mosque for religion. If I want to be a minister or a member of parliament, I know where they are and I know where to go. This is a mosque where people have to work together and help. That is the solution. Integration into Spanish culture is much easier in Granada, where the new mosque is now a place for visiting Muslim tourists to come and see, like these students from Jordan, Lebanon and Morocco. Educational exchanges with Arab countries here also means Muslims are not just identified with the lowest paid jobs. I think everyone is tolerant here and there are no problems. We get along very well. And there's a very good atmosphere, say the students. I love Granada. It's a beautiful city, they say. And the people are very welcoming and kind. Granada's young Muslims and the large immigrant population here find it much easier to identify with their adopted home thanks to the different atmosphere. A lot of Arab people live here, I'm told, and here in Granada, many, many years ago, a lot of Arab people lived before. On the street you can feel a wonderful climate of tolerance and racial mix. It's worth coming here just for that. Someone sees a man with a beard here, and they don't immediately think he's a terrorist. In Barcelona, Chaib visits a new venue. Although not officially a mosque, it's a large and well-equipped hall, financed by the growing Pakistani community. As always, some local residents are fiercely against it. Chaib says it's a lot bigger than before, but it still won't be big enough for the really big festivals.
¿Ah, sí? Bien, muy bien, muy bien. No, me parece interesante. Pues sí, ahora ya está. Oye, ¿y los vecinos aquí cómo han reaccionado?
And he asks, what about the neighbours? How have they taken it? The neighbours have got nasty, says the imam. One said, under no condition will I have a mosque under my home. I won't accept it. Then the imam said, but that's not how it's done. The Ministry of Justice has given us permission. It's terrible, terrible, concludes Chaib.
Para generar confianza es necesario que las mezquitas sean dignas.
Chaib emphasizes that to generate confidence there must be mosques which are in good condition, mosques financed by the Muslims themselves in Europe, and that native Spaniards must also be able to visit them, and not just Muslims. No, no, he says, Spaniards must be able to go in too, of course.
Visitar la mezquita, no, no, y tanto que sí.
It's likely to be many years before Muslims all across Spain can enjoy the same degree of acceptance they do now in Granada, or that they themselves can feel fully part of Spanish society. The paradox is that not building mosques appears only to make this process longer and more difficult.
Our journey continues on the next episode with Germany, where Turkish workers have made Germany their home for generations. See you next time.